Last fall, we had some tornado strength winds come through our neighborhood and took down one of our trees in our backyard. It was an okay sized tree, 10 inches in diameter. So I was thinking to myself as I was lopping off the limbs, getting ready to cut it up, like, what if I could turn this into some usable lumber? How could I do that? So I started researching chainsaw mills, and I came up with quite a few DIY chainsaw mills. And so, what did I do? I went out and bought a chainsaw. I know it's not a Steel or a Husqvarna or a name brand chainsaw, but I read some reviews and it was pretty promising. This particular one I got from Amazon, $150. It comes with a 20-inch and a 14-inch bar and chains to go with it. So stay tuned and I'll show you how I'm going to make a chainsaw mill. So if you looked at any of my previous videos, my first couple were upgrading my WorkBee CNC. So I had some leftover parts. So I had some leftover C-beams. They're 100 millimeters long. So when I put two together, they're 200 millimeters long. And so the idea is, and I've also got this leftover carriage. So the idea is that I will bolt these two together on probably some sort of crude wooden frame and use this carriage as my mill part of it. And then I'll take the chainsaw, and I found these standoffs that can bolt right into the chainsaw. And the idea is I will attach it to the carriage, and then that will be my sliding mechanism for the chainsaw. So now I've got to make a crude, I don't want to get too fancy because I don't know how well it's going to work. So I'm going to make a crude stand where I can put the log and start milling logs.
So I have this piece of laminated particle board laying around. It's about 1.1 inches thick. So I'm going to go ahead and rip it down to 10 inches on each side. So I have 2 of them. The next step is to attach these 2 pieces together at a 90 degree, but I'm going to do a rabbet cut on the edge of one, so when I do put them together I can have a nice glue joint that's not going to break apart. Like I said before, these things were potato chipped a little bit, so I'm going to use some clamps and some screws to hold this together while the glue dries. That should give it a nice good joint. Shouldn't go anywhere.
Well, that ended up a lot squarer than I anticipated. All right, so that's my base. Now on the back side, I gotta create a ledge that the aluminum extrusion will sit on. All right, so I got these standoffs that are on the chainsaw, and I'm gonna attach the carriage to it. Look at that. That's going to work quite nicely. All right, now I got to finish the base that the log's going to sit on. So I cut a bunch of 5x5 blocks out, and I'm going to recess these down on the back side of this about 4 inches. And then this will go on top of these. And then when the chainsaw carriage is put on, it'll be about a 1/2 inch clearance from the blade to the top of this. You'll see as I get going what it's going to look like. So I'm going to attach these on here 4 inches down.
So I attached a strip of wood to the back of this assembly just 4 inches down, just to make it easier for me to line up those blocks as I screw them in place.
I've got the aluminum extrusion installed, angles on and attached to it so it's solid. You can see I can put a log right here. The logs that I have outside are about 5 feet long, and this is a 4-foot piece of 4 foot, so I'll have 6 inches on each side hanging out. So that should be plenty of room to start out the chainsaw. Attach it on there. Alright. So the idea of raising the log is I'll get my first cut in, and then I'll rotate it so the flat side's down, and then I'll add some 2x4s or the amount of thickness that I want each slab to be, and then I'll just keep cutting and raising, and then I'll use screws on the back side to help secure the log in place so it doesn't roll as I'm cutting. And that'll be my first attempt at a chainsaw mill. I don't have a lot of logs to cut, but I figured for 4 logs that I do have, this will work perfect, and I should hopefully get some nice clean cuts. We'll see.
So these 5-foot logs have been sitting around since October, so I decided just to go ahead and clean up the edges and cut the ends. So I figured that this log wasn't really good enough to do some live edge pieces, so I figured I'd just go ahead and cut all 4 edges square so that I have pieces pretty close that I can just joint and plane when they're ready to be used. So each log I'm able to get about 5 pieces of wood out of it. So this last cut I'm almost able to get through the whole piece before I ran out of gas. So I'll go ahead and refill the chain bar oil and gas. I'll finish off this log. So before I stack these and put them away, I'm going to go ahead and spray paint the edges. That way, hopefully it'll minimize cracking. So I decided to stack these on some shelves in my garage. This may not be a good idea. I've already had one stack fall down. As it dried, it started to warp a little bit and just fell over. So I restacked it and used some straps to strap it down to the shelf. Hopefully that'll hold it.
So that's going to bring this chainsaw mill video to an end, and as you can see up top there, I have got 2 stacks of wood of 10 each, so 20 boards, and we'll see in a year from now how warped those boards are. You're supposed to let them sit for a year for every inch. I've got these about 1 1/8 inches, so we'll see how well they look in a year from now. As far as that chainsaw mill goes, it turned out fantastic. I am very pleased with it. And this chainsaw, oh my goodness, it just went through all sorts of logs. I'm very pleased with it for only $150 from Amazon. But that's the only chainsaw that I've ever owned, so I don't have anything to compare it to. maybe I'll do a review on it. I don't know. All right, well, that brings this video to an end. See you next time here on Smedley Wood Design.